Hi, Moses Flores. Want to make some more responses to some comments made, particularly on the formation of the canon. It is asserted by Roman Catholics that that Protestants took away books from the Bible, and that thus Roman Catholic Bibles are bigger for the most part because they have the complete collection of books that was acknowledged by the early church to be canonical. I have some very interesting quotes by the early fathers, and even by the Council of Trent and some of the commentators that put together the book on the Council of Trent, and even the Catholic Encyclopedia, explicitly saying that the canon for Rome was not infallibly defined up until April 8th, 1546, at the fourth session of the Council of Trent, and also that the canon that the church held to up until Trent was the canon that Jerome held to, which we will see, I'll quote at length from Jerome and from other fathers. They acknowledged 22 books of the Jewish canon, which equivocates to the 39 that the Protestants have in their Bible, and 27 books of the New Testament. So first, let me start by quoting from the New Catholic Encyclopedia, and I think you can go to newadvent.org and basically look this up under canon. And it makes this statement. It says, St. Jerome distinguished between canonical books and ecclesiastical books. The latter, he judged, were circulated by the Church as good spiritual reading, but were not recognized as authoritative scripture. The situation remained unclear in the ensuing centuries. For example, John of Damascus, Gregory the Great, Walafrid, Nicholas of Lyra, and Tostalo continued to doubt the canonicity of deuterocanonical books. According to Catholic doctrine, the proximate criterion of the biblical canon is the infallible decision of the Church. This decision was not given until rather late in the history of the Church at the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent definitively settled the matter of the Old Testament canon. This had not been previously done. That this had not been previously done is apparent from the uncertainty that persisted up to the time of Trent. So let's look at the canons and decrees of the Council of Trent, and this is page 17, a decree concerning the canonical scriptures. It ends up listing the book, but the cool thing is a little footnote down at the bottom. I know we're going to have a hard time seeing it, but it's there, okay? It says, the Tridentine list or decree was the first infallible and effectually promulgated declaration on the canon of the Holy Scriptures. Wow. And the charges that Protestants didn't settle their canon until late. Well, we settled ours in 393 and 397. No, not according to the evidence, apparently. Let's hear from Jerome. Jerome, as we know, was commissioned by the Bishop of Rome, Damasus, at that time, at the it was the Council of Rome, I think, basically to go off and bring an official Bible back to the West for Latin speakers. For the most part, and so Jerome goes off. He does his scholarly work. He learns Hebrew, etc., and he studies, and he comes to this conclusion. This is great. This is from the Nicene and Post-Nicene Fathers, Volume 6, St. Jerome, letter, what is that? 53, section 6 through 10. He says, these instances have been just touched upon by me. The limits of a letter forbid a more discursive treatment of them, to convince you that in the Holy Scriptures you can make no progress unless you have a guide to show you the way. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Job, Jesus son of Nave, which is Joshua son of Nun, Judges, Ruth, Samuel, the third and fourth books of Kings, the 12 prophets whose writings are compressed within the narrow limits of a single volume, that is, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Jeremiah also goes 4 times through the alphabet in different meters. That is the Book of Lamentations. David sings of Christ to his lyre and on a psaltery with 10 strings. That is the Book of Psalms. Solomon, a lover of peace and of the Lord, corrects morals, teaches nature. The books of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. Unites Christ and the church and sings a sweet marriage song to celebrate that holy bridal, the Song of Songs. Esther, Ezra, and Nehemiah. You see how, carried away by my love of the Scriptures, I have exceeded the limits of a letter. The New Testament I will briefly deal with. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Apostle Paul writes to 7 churches, for the 8th epistle, that to the Hebrews, is not generally counted in with the others. The Acts of the Apostles, the Apostle James, Peter, John, and Jude have published 7 epistles, the Apocalypse of John. And then he says, I beg of you, my dear brother, to live among these books and to meditate upon them, to know nothing else and to seek nothing else. Let's more quotes. Volume 6. This is prefaces to Jerome's work from Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs, pages 492 to 493. As then the church reads Judith, Tobit, and the Book of Maccabees, but does not admit them among the canonical scriptures, so let it also read these 2 volumes, the Wisdom of Solomon and Ecclesiasticus, for the edification of the people, not to give authority to the doctrines of the church. I say this to show you how hard it is to master the book of Daniel, which in Hebrew contains neither the history of Susanna, nor the hymn of the 3 youths, nor the fables of Bel and the dragon. And then let's see what else he has here. Another quote. This is also from letter, same volume. This is letter, what is that, 107, section 12. He says, let her treasures not be silks or gems, but manuscripts of the Holy Scriptures. Let her begin by learning the Psalter. Then let her gather rules of life out of the Proverbs of Solomon. Let her follow the example set in Job, virtue and patience. Then let her pass on to the Gospels, the Acts of the Apostles, and the Epistles. Let her commit to memory the prophets, the Pentateuch, the books of Kings and Chronicles, the rolls also of Ezra and Esther, and when she has done all these, she may safely read the Song of Songs. Let her avoid all apocryphal writings, and if she is led to read such, not by the truth of the doctrines which they contain, but out of respect for the miracles contained in them, let her understand that they are not really written by those to whom they are ascribed, that many faulty elements have been introduced into them, and that it requires infinite discretion to look for gold in the midst of dirt. Who else can I quote here from? This is a quote from Cardinal Cajetan. Cardinal Cajetan, of course, was a contemporary of Luther and objected strongly to lots of Luther's views, but yet he had this in common. He says this. He says, here we close our commentaries on the historical books of the Old Testament. For the rest, that is, Judith, Tobit, and the books of Maccabees, are counted by St. Jerome out of the canonical books and are placed among the Apocrypha along with Wisdom and Ecclesiasticus, as is plain from the Prologus Galeatus. Nor be thou disturbed like a raw scholar if thou shouldest find anywhere, either in the sacred councils or in the sacred doctors, these books reckoned as canonical. For the words as well of councils as of other doctors are to be reduced to the correction of Jerome. Now according to his judgment, in the epistle to the bishops Chromatius and Heliodorus, these books and any other like books in the canon of the Bible are not canonical, that is, not in the nature of a rule for confirming matters of faith. Yet they may be called canonical, that is, in the nature of a rule for the edification of the faithful as being received and authorized in the canon of the Bible for that purpose. By the help of this distinction thou mayest see thy way clearly through that which Augustine says and what is written in the Provincial Council of Carthage. Those are the words of Cardinal Cajetan, obviously a well-respected member of the church of his time. Now what is clear is that Luther didn't take anything out of the canon. That's that's got to be obvious. Obviously, he questioned the canonicity of certain books, but then again, they were still being questioned to that very day. He questioned the Epistle of James because he didn't feel that it was consistent teaching with the rest of the Scriptures, and it took him a while to see that it was. But Luther never removed books from the canon. It's pretty clear from the history of the Roman Catholic Church, from the fathers themselves. There is Jerome, the person who authored the Latin Vulgate, that what he clearly believed was the Old Testament canon, 22 books, which corresponds to the 39 that the Protestants have in their Bible, and 27 books which are contained, obviously, Roman Catholics and Protestants alike. So these historical assertions, really, that we added to the canon, they fall flat on their face. And when you really see the history, again, it's in the book, The Canons and Decrees of the Council of Trent, the first infallible definition of the canon, April 8th, 1546.